Tens of thousands of protesters gather outside the legislature as lawmakers battle over controversial reforms. Only 60% of registered nurses are actually working in the profession. We find out what Taiwan is doing to tackle this massive shortage. Plus, as Taiwan's Olympians prepare for the Summer Games, TaiwanPlus speaks with a kayaker from the national team who's learned to go with the flow. Good evening and welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Eric Gao. After a night of massive protests outside Taiwan's legislature on Tuesday, another round has been announced for Friday as a series of controversial reforms make their way through the opposition-controlled body. Reese Ayers has the latest.
Cries to save Taiwan's democracy, as tens of thousands took to the streets of the capital on Tuesday. Now, the calm between two storms. The area around Taiwan's legislature seemingly peaceful, but this Friday they'll be thronged with protesters once again, when a potentially even larger crowd is expected to gather, to express their anger at a series of legislative reforms proposed by the two main opposition parties.
民主的国家不代表说你就可以这样子随便修改法律，然后随便不照着法律走的。
必须要意识到他们的权利是由人民交付的。
Mostly supporters of Taiwan's ruling Democratic Progressive Party, or DPP, protesters say those reforms put forward by the Kuomintang, or KMT, and the smaller Taiwan People's Party, or TPP, who together hold a majority in Taiwan's legislature, will give lawmakers more powers that some fear will undermine Taiwan's democracy.
只要这个法案通过的话，未来这些立法委员们，他们就可以随时的把这些官员还有人民，就是完全不负理由的，就是叫来问话，然后请我们提供资讯，我们可能会被罚款、罚金，甚至可能会有期徒刑。
The bill could also give the legislature the power to summon the president for questioning by lawmakers. But supporters of the reforms say they're necessary to keep the government accountable.
我们希望政府机关可以充分的接受人民的监督，接受民意代表监督，因为民意代表代表人民来监督。所以呢，不要把我们想要通过反贪污、要找弊案的这样的法律，我们的行使职权的法令就当罪，就直接把我们扣上一个卖国的帽子。
Protesters say that the opposition are trying to sneak these reforms through without due process, that the bills didn't get proper readings, and that Speaker Han Kuo-yu has broken protocol by having legislators vote through a show of hands, rather than the usual electronic voting. But supporters of the bill argue the opposition has had more than enough time to voice their concerns about the reforms, and that the way the DPP is blocking them is undemocratic. The reforms and protests pose an immediate challenge to President Lai Ching-te just days into his tenure. But without a legislative majority, Lai's party is limited in how much it can do to stop these reforms and any other bills that may come over the next 4 years. So as Taiwan's legislature prepares to reconvene on Friday and protesters say they'll return to keep their voices heard, this now peaceful square could become the stage for even more unrest. Alex Chen, Ryan Wu, Sally Jensen and Reese Ayers in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
A top cardinal says the Vatican wants to open a permanent office in China. This could signal a major upgrade in the historically difficult relationship between the Holy See and Beijing. Pope Francis has been trying to normalize relations between the two sides. They agreed to a landmark pact on appointing bishops in 2018. Although the church says that deal benefits Catholics in China, conservatives within the church criticize the move. The Holy See is Taiwan's only European ally, and Taiwan's foreign ministry has yet to comment on this matter. Taiwan's new president and vice president wasted no time in meeting with delegations from across the world since Monday's inauguration. Among them, a group of French politicians. TaiwanPlus sat down with one of them to learn more about why they're visiting Taiwan.
You are leading the first French parliamentary delegation to Taiwan this year. What message do you wish to send to your Taiwanese counterparts?
Le message, c'est que la France est là et la France est un partenaire stable, et avec bien sûr Taïwan. Et donc nous avons beaucoup de domaines sur lesquels nous pouvons prolonger, approfondir ce partenariat sur les questions scientifiques, sur des questions d'éducation, sur des questions aussi économiques, sur des questions de développement. Je pense notamment à l'intelligence artificielle. Et puis nous avons aussi, entre deux démocraties, des échanges à avoir sur la question de la stratégie Indo-Pacifique que nous avons adoptée en France. Donc voilà, beaucoup de questions qui forgent ces relations entre la France et Taïwan.
You spoke with Taiwan's Vice President, Xiaobi Kim, during President Lai's inauguration. What were the key points of your discussion?
Alors nous avons fait là aussi, donc d'abord un point sur la situation internationale, qui n'est pas simple, avec ce qui se passe bien évidemment en Ukraine, avec ce qui se passe au Moyen-Orient, et donc l'importance pour les démocraties aussi de porter haut leurs valeurs, à commencer par la question de la démocratie, par la question de la liberté. Nous avons également zoomé sur la zone, le détroit, les deux rives, et l'importance effectivement que nous avons eu, nous, Français, d'inscrire dans la loi de programmation militaire 2024-2030 la liberté, de garantir la liberté et les moyens avec la liberté de navigation, de circulation dans cet ensemble indo-pacifique. Et puis nous avons échangé aussi sur beaucoup de champs, de domaines, de compétences et de travail conjoint. Notamment, moi j'ai évoqué beaucoup que dans cette double révolution que devait mener Taïwan, je pense qu'il y a matière à travailler ensemble. Je pense notamment là à la révolution, la nouvelle révolution à Taïwan sur semi-conducteurs, intelligence artificielle. Je crois que là, il faut avec l'idée d'une intelligence artificielle qui soit au service de l'humain et non pas l'inverse. Et puis sur la question aussi de la révolution énergétique que nous menons nous en France, mais que mène également Taïwan. Donc deux sujets très importants sur lesquels nous pensons que nos écosystèmes peuvent interagir. Et puis il y a un autre sujet, moi, qui me tenait à cœur, avec qui j'ai pu discuter également. Je suis rapporteur d'une commission d'enquête sénatoriale sur la question des ingérences, notamment comment la lutte. Et on sait que là-dessus, sur ces questions-là, Taïwan est très en avance.
That was French Senator Rachid Tamal speaking with reporter Arnaud Campan. Civil defense experts from Ukraine are here in Taiwan, sharing their insights on how to best prepare for a potential conflict. Jaime Ocon went to hear their ideas.
Here at this forum in Taipei, civil defense leaders from Ukraine are teaching people here about the lessons they've learned in fighting against Russia's invasion of their country. It's organized by the Kuma Academy, one of Taiwan's largest civil defense groups, and it's part of an effort to educate as many people as possible on what to do in a war. People here say the most important lesson has been fighting disinformation.
For the civil defense, we usually focus on first aid or evacuation. Well, in this new kind, the new form of hybrid warfare, it's quite crucial that we need to focus on first the information space, the cybersecurity part, and also disinformation. But we also need to focus more on the legal space, how all these countries, especially the authoritarian state, how they push for their legal framework.
Along with fighting disinformation, there are also calls for Taiwanese civilians to learn more about first aid and using small arms, skills that will help them form militias that can work with the military. The experts here say that it's not about sending people into battle, but more about preparation. They want to make sure that Taiwan is ready and equipped for any contingency. Ukrainian analysts who are just on the front lines say that any help goes a long way.
It's really important in case of bombing, what you will do if someone will be injured. So no panic, just when you know how to use tourniquets and everything. This is even morale is important when you know what are your steps. Instead of fear, you have to be prepared.
Organizers say that more cooperation between Ukraine and Taiwan is planned in areas like military technology and tactics. But the speakers at the summit say that they hope to spark an initiative and motivate civilians here in Taiwan. They say that preparation is the best way to deter a conflict. Andy Xue and Jaime Ocon in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
Police are stepping up patrols on the country's metro systems after a knife attack on the Taichung Metro on Tuesday left 3 people injured. The Taipei Metro already has precautions in place after a fatal stabbing in 2014. These include intercoms that link passengers with drivers and the control center, as well as rules that each station must have at least 1 security guard. But even on Taipei's Metro, there have been 15 incidents of knife crime in the past decade. Police say passengers should be ready to defend themselves with bags, coats, or other objects they have on them.
你这样子去打，然后它会从这边断掉。我说你打的时候是拿后面用这边去攻击。
Hospitals are struggling to treat patients as nurses continue to leave the profession. And as John Van Trieste reports, government policies meant to stem the flow have yet to show results.
Hospitals at a breaking point. Burnout that began during the COVID pandemic has seen nurses across the country quit en masse. Now, just 60% of Taiwan's registered nurses are still working in the profession, but patient numbers haven't dropped. The government's trying to help. New policies that took effect in March include strict limits on how many patients a nurse can look after. The idea is to keep nurses from being overworked and keep patients safe. The government's also set aside over $120 million in rewards for night shift workers, since shift work is one reason many nurses decide to leave the profession. Still, the nature of the work is the same.
这么辛苦的一个医疗行业的话，那当然就有些人在考虑他职场生涯的时候，就会去做一些选择。我觉得政府应该要高度的关注，立刻来执行对于整个健保体制或是总额支付制度的改革。
Again, the government says it is paying attention. The health ministry plans to spend over $350 million over 4 years to invest in nursing, both in attracting new people to the job and convincing those already in it to stay. Some nurses, like Ji Shujing of the Taiwan Union of Nurses Association, have other ideas about how to ease the nursing shortage. But they say there is no magic solution.
现在也在发展说，有一些重度的能够居家住院，让居家护理师有更多能够在社区提供一些更多的服务。我觉得它多方面大概没有办法一下子就一个政策，然后我们人力马上补进来。
But Ji Shujing also says it will take time for the policies introduced in March to show results. Though no cure, nurses like her believe they may at least reduce turnover, giving Taiwan a foundation for rebuilding its nursing profession. Klein Wang and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's top athletes are preparing for the Paris Olympics. Sandy Chi met one of the country's kayakers to find out what it takes to be an Olympian.
In life and in the water, Olympic kayakers like Zhang Zhonghan have to go with the flow while fighting the currents. The 31-year-old Taiwanese Olympian will tell you that the trick is balancing the two while dancing with the eddies.
其实一开始我在水面上感觉是我一直在跟水流做对抗，并不是跟它和平共处。如果你想要在急流里面滑得快，你必须要顺着流走是最快的。可是如果你跟它做对抗，反而会有反效果。跟着水流一起跳舞，会是最棒的方式。
At the 2020 Tokyo Games, Zhang became the first Taiwanese kayaker to compete in the Olympics in slalom canoe. She's now hoping to again show off her 2 decades of experience at the Summer Games in Paris. It's a goal that fulfills a promise made to her coach, Li Zhongwen, before he died.
我有一个教练，然后他一直很希望有出现一个奥运选手，然后可以去比奥运这样子。因为他在这个过程中，就是因为忙碌嘛，然后身体状况没那么好，就有脑溢血，所以我是在他的病房内，然后答应他说我会为了他去比奥运，所以那时候才下定决心说要好好的把心理肌肉练好这样子。
In the years before his passing, Coach Lee guided Zhang through troubled waters, supporting her both emotionally and financially. She says he remains her idol and inspiration.
我对他很尊敬，是因为他为了蜻蜓这个项目奉献了很多，甚至到最后连生命其实都奉献下去这样子。他让我看到对一项东西的热爱啊。其实他一直像以前我们没有经费的时候，也是他很多是他自己掏腰包帮我们付钱的。
To support her passion, Zhang spent years in the mornings and evenings while holding a full-time job. Her fiberglass kayak costs over $3,000. And in a country with limited training facilities and government support, the cost of travel and training abroad really adds up.
台湾的场地就是它不是真正的赛道，像我们现在所在的安农溪，它就是天然的河道去放置障碍物，然后形成的，但是它的危险性还是一定有。然后加上它的水流没办法控制，
After years of abroad training with the best in the world, Zhang has returned to Taiwan temporarily. In the run-up to the Paris Olympics, she is working with a new coach from Japan on her technique and conditioning.
Especially for the technical training, now is main things for us. So because she already have a good physical condition.
Zhang's determination and passion have helped her fulfill her commitment to her late coach. But despite her achievements and years of sacrifice, she experienced moments of doubt and considered hanging up her paddles.
比完上一届奥运之后，我就不想划船了，因为挫折感太深。就是明明我参加奥运想把它做好，可是却没做好，然后感觉好像对不起很多人，好像没有让世界看到台湾，就是其实台湾可以有不一样的感觉。
But Zhang didn't give up. She dug deep. And this summer in Paris, she'll once again brave the currents, representing her country on the world stage. Scott Huang and Sandy Chi for TaiwanPlus.
Stay with us on TaiwanPlus News because coming up, we head to Japan, where musicians from Taiwan's indigenous communities are giving a special performance.
This month's top hits on TaiwanPlus. Explore the world of floating palaces, where extravagance meets technical prowess.
很多客户他们找我们的时候，他的 idea 是没有其他船厂做得来的。
Rediscover your passion for classical, jazz, and a cappella music with the exceptional talent of Taiwanese musicians. Feeling hungry? Join Canadian influencer Luke Martin as he explores Taiwan's finest delicacies.
I fell in love with the culture, the people, and the cuisine.
Famous for their delicious cuisine.
Looking for great advice? Brace yourself for expats revealing Taiwan's hidden gems in the new season of Wow Taiwan.
Wow me some more.
Vibrant and original programs exclusively on TaiwanPlus.
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. 143 passengers and crew have arrived in Singapore after turbulence forced their flight from London to make an emergency landing in Bangkok. Joyce Sun looks into a flight that left one person dead and dozens injured.
How do you feel about the experience? Were you hurt? No, very lucky.
Arriving at their destination after a nightmare diversion. Passengers aboard a Singapore Airlines flight hit by severe turbulence have finally reached Singapore via a relief flight. Flight SQ321 from London to Singapore broke from its path and made an emergency landing in Bangkok after sudden turbulence threw passengers and crew around the cabin during a meal service, killing one person and hospitalizing at least 71.
I don't think for most people who weren't prepared, they wouldn't really have time to really react and do something about it. Because if I remember correctly, I think the seatbelt signs were off, but I saw people from across the aisle just like going completely horizontal, hitting the ceiling and landing back down in really awkward positions.
The Boeing 777-300ER left London's Heathrow on Monday night local time with 211 passengers and 18 crew members on board. The airline says the plane encountered turbulence here over the Irrawaddy Basin in Myanmar and plunged around 1,800 meters in minutes. The pilot declared a medical emergency and diverted the aircraft to Bangkok, landing in Suvarnabhumi Airport Tuesday afternoon. Atmospheric scientists say unstable weather is the most obvious cause of turbulence, but that clear air turbulence can also happen when large air masses close to each other move at different speeds.
At higher altitudes where most aircraft are flying, the main sources are one, clear air turbulence, which is kind of a misnomer because it can be not clear air, but there can be the source due to clear air. That is, you can have the jet stream causing winds to be very strong.
Flight safety experts urge travelers to keep seatbelts on whenever possible, regardless of the fasten seatbelt sign, to minimize injuries during turbulence. As for this latest incident, the CEO of Singapore Airlines has offered his condolences in a video message on Facebook and says the airline will provide all possible assistance to the remaining 85 passengers and crew still receiving medical care in Bangkok. Joseph Wu and Joyce Zhen for TaiwanPlus.
The first group of Australians evacuated from riot-stricken New Caledonia have arrived home on a military plane. They evacuated after deadly protests broke out in the Pacific Island earlier this month, when lawmakers in Paris allowed more residents from France to vote in local elections. Indigenous leaders say this will dilute the political influence of the native population. The unrest has caused schools and airports to close, and authorities have imposed a curfew in the territory's capital of Noumea. More than 3,000 people are still waiting to fly in and out of the island. In a coordinated decision, Norway, Spain, and Ireland have announced that they will officially recognize the state of Palestine. All three countries will formally recognize Palestine starting May 28th. They say Palestinians have the right to self-determination, and a two-state solution is necessary for lasting peace in the Middle East. Other European countries, like Slovenia and Malta, have indicated that they may follow suit. Israel has recalled its ambassadors from Norway and Ireland over this decision. A former Royal Marine charged with spying for Hong Kong has been found dead. Matthew Trickett was found in a public park in southern England and pronounced dead at the scene. His death is being treated as unexplained and will be investigated further. Trickett was one of 3 men charged under the UK National Security Act last week, accused of assisting a foreign intelligence service and foreign interference. Trickett and the others were out on bail. The espionage case has fueled a diplomatic row between Britain and China. The U.S. Treasury Secretary is urging the EU to join the U.S. in curbing China's growing exports of cheap green technology. Janet Yellen made the comments during a speech in Frankfurt. She said China's industrial capacity is a threat to American and European markets.
China's industrial policy may seem remote as we sit here in this room, but if we do not respond strategically and in a united way, the viability of businesses in both our countries and around the world could be at risk.
The U.S. has repeatedly said that it will not accept excess production that would flood global markets with cheap exports, and it recently announced steep tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles, solar products, steel, and other items. An award-winning indigenous musical group from Taiwan's East Coast joined a Japanese orchestra for a one-time-only performance in a cultural festival in Kyoto, bringing a special part of Taiwan's culture to Japan. Our reporter Tiffany Wong has the story.
In unique and perfect harmony, the Puyuma family band from Taiwan is singing their traditional indigenous songs, accompanied by the brass and strings of Japan's style Kyoto Orchestra. Hundreds came to see them perform together at this festival in Japan, celebrating Taiwanese culture.
当然，我们要带出台湾最有特色的这个歌谣来跟他们交流哈，所以其实我也费尽心思。
The Puyuma are one among 16 recognized indigenous peoples in Taiwan, accounting for 2% of the country's population. They have their own language and musical traditions, distinct from those of Taiwan's majority Han Chinese population. Their unique sound posed a challenge when working with a modern Japanese orchestra.
我们有时候一句话可能他会唱个6拍5拍，然后这个跟西洋音乐可能会有一些的落差，所以我们就尽量就是用身体的律动来跟他们搭配。
Besides body language, the groups found they were able to communicate in Japanese as well, a remnant of Japan's colonization of Taiwan.
我们就是爸爸妈妈
那个时代，几乎就是都是会讲日文，所以对日文对我们来讲还蛮耳熟的。
Just before going on stage, the group gathered to offer rice wine to their ancestors and welcome them on stage, a Puyuma tradition during important family events. And the stirring performance that followed moved some in the audience to tears.
那说真的，今天原住民的歌谣能够由交响乐来伴奏，我会觉得是好像把自己的部落跟文化和跟歌谣都会提升一点。
And as they played their final song, the Puyuma group invited the Japanese conductor to sing along in their indigenous language, the sounds of the orchestra swelling behind them, a celebration of their shared history and cultural ties. Kamashri and Tiffany Wong in Kyoto, Japan for TaiwanPlus.
Thanks for tuning in to Taiwan Plus News. Find more of our reports on our website or follow us on social media. Finally, we take you to Algeria, where an ancestral ball game is kicking off to celebrate spring. I'm Eric Gao. We'll see you later.